Connected. Give me 1 second. I think we are connected. Actually, it looks like the sound is working now. Let me know that you can hear me in the comments loud and clear. Won't you go ahead and let me know, ladies and gentlemen, a little bit of a different format tonight. This is not an official numbered MCJ report, and I'll tell you the reason for that in just a little bit. So just checking, I see that we're on Rumble. Go ahead and share the broadcast and let me know that you are receiving the transition okay. We are live on YouTube, that's right, there's a few of you there, so like, subscribe, go ahead and share the broadcast. 10 points if you can identify what looks different about MCJ Report this evening. So I'd like to welcome everybody to the show. I can see Living, I can see Alt News Reports, how you going? There's Lunabelle saying you can hear me. Hopefully you can see me okay there, ladies and gentlemen. There is AW4A. saying that you are from Victoria. Who else is from Victoria? And that's a good idea. So put in the comments where exactly you are from, whether you're from the Socialist Republic of Victoria, somewhere else in Australia. And of course, we like to welcome our friends internationally. That's right, we do have a few of our American brothers and sisters that like to watch MCJ Report, and we have some supporters scattered from different countries around the world. That's right. Alrighty, that's good. There's Lunabelle there, Van Presser, Purple. Purple says move the camera. Well, unfortunately, I can't move anything because it's just me in the studio. That's right. I'm the researcher. I'm the sound guy. I'm the lights guy. I'm the camera guy. The production guy. So maybe if more people become MCJ Report members, that's right, we can have more of an interactive show whereby there could potentially be other people in the studio. That's right. And there's Paul Pettit there. Well, this is the Blue Ensign, and this is the flag I grew up with. And at the end of the day, whether you fly a Blue Ensign or a Red Ensign, I say they're all flags of Australia. So Pick your choice. This is our country. We love Australia. There's Marianne Plemming there, tuned in from the great suburb of Frankston North. Frankston, a very special place to me, of course, where I confronted Dan Andrews on the streets. That's right. And his legs did the chicken dance. That's right. When he is behind the cameras at the press conferences, he's very tough. But when you find him in person, I'll give you a bit of a hint. Not so tough. There's Melissa there. Alrighty, so I believe that the broadcast is fired up now. I see we're connected on Facebook, YouTube, and on Rumble. If you've just tuned in, especially for the first time, I am your host, Morgan Charles Jonas. So why don't you go ahead and give the broadcast a share, get the word out there, and let's get down to business, shall we, ladies and gentlemen? We got some interesting matters to discuss today, a little bit of everything for this casual MCJ report. Now, I said before that I was going to tell you why is MCJ Report in this format tonight. Well, what we are going to do for MCJ Report 200 is something that we have never done before. And we are up to MCJ Report 193. That was the episode last week. So for episode 200, we will run the show with a live audience. That's right. We're just getting a few of the final details sorted out in terms of the venue and exactly how we are going to set the show up. Tickets will go on sale really soon, so stay tuned, and I hope that you will be a part of this monumental event. MCJ Report 200 will be a live show, live audience. We're going to have a great time, so that is something for you to look forward to in July. That's right, it will be in July. So we're going to fill up a few Sundays with this casual format MCJ chat in order for the timing to make sense, because I think that it is only reasonable and fitting that we celebrate the 200th episode with a live audience. Who here likes the idea of that? If you're excited, then go ahead and put your thoughts in the comments. This has been something that I wanted to do from the very beginning, starting MCJ Report and broadcasting. I thought, how cool would it be to have a live show with a desk and guests and lights and cameras and microphones and all that good stuff, so that we can have a live audience forum and run the show doing what we do, taking aim at the Victorian state government and other governments around the country. You know what we do. So something to look forward to. Anyway, go ahead and give the broadcast a share. I see that we're all connected. All right. I'm going to start smashing. So what took place in Gippsland today right here in Victoria was something extraordinary. That's right. Trees, Plants and Sustaining Life's Necessities, a community forum where facts, not spin, matters. So I'd like to give a big shout out to our Eastern Region Manager, Leonie Blackwell, also the Deputy Leader of Freedom Party of Victoria, for facilitating this very important forum whereby there were representatives from a range of different industries, including but not limited to the industrial hemp industry, a tremendous product that can be used for so many applications in both the building industry and textiles, and a massive opportunity for Australia actually to take the lead in global hemp production. I'd love to see that. Also the logging industry, as well as the bamboo industry as well. So the good news is that if you missed out on this forum, if you missed out on hearing from these experts, then all you need to do is go to Leonie's Facebook page. So go to Facebook and type in Leonie Blackwell, Freedom Party Eastern Region Manager, and the entire event was filmed. So you can go and catch up on everything from today, and make sure that you give Leonie a follow, because she is doing tremendous work in the Eastern region of Victoria, and this is indeed work that you wouldn't want to miss out on. And it just keeps getting better and better, ladies and gentlemen, because tomorrow night we have an event in the western suburbs of Melbourne. That's right, Freedom Party of Victoria, not taking a step backwards, not feeling dejected by this so-called individual by the name of Dan Andrews, who's apparently the Premier of Victoria. That's the rumour anyway. Maybe he is, maybe he's not. There is a meeting tomorrow night, so if you'd like to find out more about Freedom Party of Victoria, and if you happen to live in the Western Metropolitan region of Melbourne, then head on down 7 p.m. at the Water Gardens Hotel Sports Bar in Taylors Lake. So once again, that is Monday night, 7 p.m. at the Water Gardens Hotel Sports Bar in Taylors Lakes. There will be Damien Richardson there, who many of you know and love, and of course Freedom Party's very own Greg Cheeseman. The event will be run by our Western Metropolitan Manager, Kim Cullen. So get on down, get involved, and we say that the more hands that we have on deck, the more of you that join the fight, the greater our prospects will be moving forward to our ultimate goal of toppling the man who would very much like to believe that he's a dictator, but we know that he's really not. Anyway, moving forward, shall we? Alrighty, so very sad news here in Moorabbin. Senior Sergeant found dead at Moorabbin Police Station. Apparently, this was a suicide. So it really begs the question, doesn't it, ladies and gentlemen? How many police officers out there are suffering depression? How many are suffering in silence? It would be interesting to find out the true numbers of this. Of course, mental health, an ongoing epidemic here, especially here in Victoria. And I would say most definitely many cases in relation to the lockdowns that were imposed by Dan Andrews. And if you're in the police force, then go ahead and reach out to us. Is there a lot of depression going on? Is it the result of what happened over the past few years? I think that now we need to be very realistic, and we really need to get down to business regarding the detrimental effects of which many people are suffering due to the government. And this is not something that we like to see, but unfortunately I think that it will continue for as long as the issue is left unaddressed. All right, moving along here, check this out. Public drunkenness is soon to be decriminalised in Victoria, but stakeholders say they are still waiting for clarity. Alrighty, so what are your thoughts about this at home, ladies and gentlemen? I tend to think that one person's state of being intoxicated should not necessarily be the overall determining factor in whether or not an individual is guilty of a criminal offence. I think it should really come down to the behaviour at hand. If somebody is disorderly in public and being aggressive and impeding on other people's freedom, then I would say that should be a criminal offence, regardless of whether or not the person is intoxicated at the time, right? But if somebody is drunk, intoxicated, and just minding his own business, should that person be guilty of a criminal offence simply for being in public? Well, my opinion is no, I certainly would not think so. So I think that we need more clarity around the subject. Maybe you've got your own thoughts at home. Why don't you go ahead and put your thoughts in the comments? Alrighty, Victoria's opposition leader booed by members of his own party. That's right, the very unpopular John Pesutto, who has made headlines over the past few weeks for bullying his own party members, has been drastically booed at a Liberal Party meeting in Bendigo. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. So many members of the Liberal Party, I would say the majority of rational members of the Liberal Party, do not appreciate the actions of John Pesutto. They do not consider him a leader, and they made a big statement just the other day. Take a look at this.
John Pesutto.
Disgrace! Shame! 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 Shame!
Pretty interesting, wouldn't you say, ladies and gentlemen? I mean, I think this man is a divisive figure. I think that what he's really doing is decimating any support that the Victorian Liberal Party once had. And at the end of the day, you can lead the horse to water, but you can't make it drink. John Pesutto just very intent on emulating Daniel Andrews, I'd say. I can't see all that much difference between the two men. It appears to me that John Pesutto is actually trying to perhaps win over the respect of Dan Andrews, which I think is a very strange behaviour from an opposition leader. So put your thoughts in the comments. Where do you think it's all heading? I can all but guarantee you that there's somebody in the parliamentary wing of the Liberal Party eyeing off John Pesutto's leadership position as we speak. Of course, the leader of the opposition is receiving a huge pay increase above that of a regular backbencher. That's right. So whoever in the opposition holds the position of leader also holds the biggest salary. And I dare say for a lot of our members of parliament, that is indeed the greatest motivating factor for why they are in parliament, which is really sad. But on the other hand, what do? Well, you go to freedomparty.net.au, you become a member of Freedom Party, you go and attend a meeting, you get involved, and you say, enough's enough, we're going to fight for our children, we're going to fight to oppose the Daniel Andrews Labor government because John Pesutto and his very shonky and incapable leadership team, and when I say the word leadership, it feels wrong, they're not really stepping up to the plate, are they? They're not doing a good job. They're not doing any job. They're not real opposition. And that is because it is only the people, the grassroots people of this state that can truly oppose the forces of evil within the Victorian government. And of course, I'm referring to Daniel Andrews and his crooked colleagues. Anyway, moving along here. Very, very sad news. Who saw this? My life is on hold. Young tradie blinded after Moderna vaccine denied compensation. So, of course, we see the mainstream media now a lot more willing to actually publish articles about vaccine injuries. For a long time, the mainstream media and other people in government were really criticizing people like you and I who had very serious concerns about the vaccine in relation to its efficacy, in relation to its safety. And we look back to members of parliament such as the former disgraced Health Minister Greg Hunt, who said over and over again that the vaccine is safe and effective and used pressure and coercion tactics to the likes of, well, you need to take this to save your grandmother. And when you see a case like this, a young man who was at virtually no risk of dying from COVID-19, and he's now permanently blinded, according to this article, after experiencing what appears to be a vaccine injury, is just absolutely tragic. It's heartbreaking, and nobody wants to claim any responsibility for it, neither the government nor Moderna. Now, this came recently after a study was published by Nature.com, and by the way, Nature.com is one of the world's most renowned online medical journals in relation to the risk of blindness after a COVID-19 vaccination. Now, if you'd like me to send you the details of this study, maybe you want to forward these details to a friend or family member that you've been speaking to, go on over to mcjreport.com, click on the newsletter link, put your email address in, and I'll send out the link to this study in the next email, which will be over the next day or two. I think it's really important to spread this information. Nature.com is a reliable source. Nobody can accuse you of being a cooker. Nobody can accuse you of being some sort of weird tinfoil wearing hat conspiracy theorist or anything like that. The writing is on the wall, and unfortunately, we see a growing number of young people who are suffering. Some of them will be permanently suffering for the rest of their lives. All right, moving along here, this is also interesting to point out. More than $2 billion wasted on unused COVID-19 vaccines. Now, the funny thing is about this article that was published recently was that we predicted this on MCJ Report probably around 2 years ago. I remember making a report in relation to the number of vaccines the Australian government had committed to and the shelf life of those vaccines based on the population of people. And anyone who can understand that 1 + 1 = 2 could have told you that there would be incredible wastage when it came to importing these shots. Now, of course, if you ask me, when we look at the government's spend in relation to the COVID-19 response, we just saw money flying out the window left, right, and center. We saw policies that were based on nothing more than pseudoscience, right, to the likes of children locked out of playgrounds. And when it came to the development of the vaccine, we know that this was the fastest turnaround time for any vaccine in human history, whereby most vaccines actually can take between 8 to 15 years to develop. Yet, of course, this shot was done so quickly, which had even some of the world's most renowned immunologists scratching their head thinking, how can this be? How can we be sure that the vaccine is safe and effective, as promised to us by the former disgraced, once again, Health Minister Greg Hunt, who was able to, of course, move some pieces around with the Therapeutic Goods Administration. That's putting it nicely. So yet again, another massive waste of taxpayer dollars. And in my opinion, most of the exercises over the past 3 years in relation to COVID-19 were indeed a waste of taxpayer dollars. The government should have simply followed the Great Barrington Declaration, which was really simple, whereby those who are vulnerable are protected and those who are at very little risk of being affected by a virus should be left free to manage their own risks, take care of their own health, and to go about living their lives as per normal. But instead, of course, the government wanted to pretend to be the saviors of humanity. And this is really at the core of control. This is a very typical method used by authoritarian and communist societies since the dawn of human existence in a variety of different ways, shapes, and forms. The government either exaggerating a crisis, creating a crisis, and then masquerading as the solution to that crisis, and using our own money to bribe the population, taking, let's just say for argument's sake, 90% of our money, giving us back 10%, and then creating the perception that, of course, the government is the sole provider of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, whereas we know the provider of those gifts is actually God. So the government cannot take the place of God. Don't let it. And at the end of the day, my advice to you is don't let the system get you down. And after the debacle that we have experienced over the past few years, I think there are many of us Australians, millions of us, who are very sensitive to creeping authoritarianism and will be ready at a moment's notice to strike back with full force. This is something else interesting to point out. This was from earlier this month. The removal of prescribing restrictions on ivermectin. So remember, during the height of COVID-19, the prescription of ivermectin for off-label use was actually outlawed by the Therapeutic Goods Administration when Greg Hunt was Health Minister. But now apparently the TGA has decided that ivermectin can be used for off-label prescription purposes. And this is pretty interesting because still, according to the government, we have a national daily rate of positive COVID-19 tests of 5,461. Okay, whereas remember a couple of years ago, there were, say, a couple of positive cases. And of course, we know the truth about the COVID-19 PCR test. Even when there were a few, say, positive test results, that's probably a better way of putting it, we saw the most draconian measures. We saw curfews. We saw police splitting people's heads open in the streets. But with thousands of positive results per day, the TGA saying, go ahead, let's get the ivermectin out there. You think that the government would turn around and say, you know what, we made a big mistake imposing those restrictions and those draconian rules during COVID-19, but they'll never do that because, of course, to admit that the response was radically disproportionate would be to admit that they were wrong. And if there's one thing a government will never do, they will never admit that they were wrong. The implications politically are too high. The stakes are too high. It could cost certain members their re-election. It could open up a can of worms in relation to lawsuits, etc. So therefore, it's up to you at home to get the truth out there to your friends and family and to join a force that is actively fighting back. And that force is not the Victorian Liberal Party, it's Freedom Party of Victoria. And when we aim between the eyes, and that's the only place where we are interested in aiming. So join those who are standing up and fighting. All right, moving along here. US-based firm Conduent put under spotlight ahead of December Mikey takeover. Who here saw this? This is pretty interesting. I'm going to read this to you. Last week, a US-based Conduent was awarded a $1.7 billion contract to take over the operation of Mikey from December this year. So, ladies and gentlemen, the first question that I want to ask you at home is, why could this contract not be awarded to an Australian company? We're smart. We have great information technology capabilities here in Australia. We have tremendous research in the field of IT. So was it really necessary to outsource this contract to a foreign corporation? Ask yourself that question at home. Why were Australian companies either not considered or not awarded the contract? Now, it's important to point out that when we look at these huge companies, these huge technology companies, there's always a holding company and a range of various shareholders behind them who, of course, have a vested interest in the success of the organization. So by awarding these types of contracts to foreign organizations, it's important to take point and to understand that the key objective of, say, in this case, Conduent, I would say, is not to provide a service of value to the Australian public. Rather, it's to satisfy the financial objectives of their shareholders. Okay, because at the end of the day, if the shareholders aren't getting paid, the company has no legs to stand on, which is very concerning. And of course, these international shareholders are taking a little piece of the pie. That's right. So put it this way, every time you use Myki, every time you travel on public transport here in Victoria, a percentage of your fare is going overseas and lining the pockets of billionaires who have more than enough money, but no matter what, they always need a little bit more. And in a time like now, when cost of living is through the roof and Victorians are struggling like any time ever before, we would have loved to see a contract like this awarded to a Victorian company, but no. We're going to shovel the money off overseas. So who are some of these shareholders? I hear you wondering at home. Well, I did the research for you. So usual sort of suspects here. We have ICANN Associates Holdings from the United States being the biggest shareholder at 17.5%. This particular individual organization has its fingers in a lot of pies. And you'll see some very regular names here, such as the Vanguard Group and BlackRock Fund Advisors. I know that a lot of you at home have done a lot of reading and research into these organizations, so you're probably not too surprised to see the typical type of characters involved in the who own a controlling stake in this contract. And once again, the Victorian state government and Daniel Andrews have a lot of questions to answer, but of course they won't. Not as long as we have the toothless tiger in town known as IBAC. Alrighty, moving along here. Parliament hosts drag story time for cancelled performers. That's right. So, Daniel Andrews, the Premier of Victoria, giving people such as you, me, and other concerned Victorians the two massive middle fingers. What can I say? There were a range of drag events that were cancelled and shut down over the past few weeks due to Victorians raising concerns with their local councils, local libraries, etc. And of course, on MCJ Report, we make no bones about it in that drag queen events are not for children. We want these events to be cancelled. We don't want them to continue. I've said it before, I'll say it again, that these events should not be taking place. They need to be shut down by any means necessary. And it is nothing more than a democratic right of we the people to protest, especially when the government is engaging in activities that harm children. That's right, the most vulnerable people in our society are children. Now, Dan Andrews has actually hosted this event in Parliament House, and he did it in secret because, of course, this was a big reason was he wanted to give the general population the middle finger. But I'd say there's something a lot more sinister with Daniel Andrews going on here. So let's just open up a few images. So there's Dan Andrews right there with a very, very satisfied and interested / excited look on his face. Here's another one right there, Daniel Andrews. I mean, I've never seen the man so happy and excited about anything ever before in my life. So what do you think that's all about, ladies and gentlemen? I mean, they say that a picture can tell 1,000 words, and I say this is most definitely a prime example of that. And this is not exactly from the event, but Dan Andrews, of course, doesn't mind having a bit of a boogie, having a bit of a party with drag queens. It seems to be something that he very, very much enjoys. And we really need to ask a lot of questions like, why did the leader of the opposition, John Pesutto, not condemn this highly inappropriate and predatory event? In fact, John Pesutto actually expressed disappointment that he was not invited and that he was not involved. So what needs to happen here, ladies and gentlemen, is that the Liberal Party needs to come out and actually condemn Dan Andrews for this event. But of course, we haven't seen anything. They haven't said boo. It's almost as if they're either sitting on the fence, they're impartial, and some of them are probably upset that they weren't invited. Why is Dan Andrews so intent on getting children in front of drag queens? Why is he so obsessed with it? What is his motivation for this, and what is he seeking to achieve? That's a question that I ask you at home. What Dan needs to do is he needs to leave Victorian kids alone. Drag queens are not for kids. These events are predatory and seek to insert adult notions into the minds of children. And it absolutely boggles the mind that we've supposedly got an opposition party here in Victoria that has done nothing to oppose these predatory events. So that's why we here at Freedom Party, we take it upon ourselves to act as a voice of opposition because, well, there is no opposition apart from us. So we released this media statement the other day. I'm going to read it to you. This is in response to Dan Andrews. For immediate release, Freedom Party of Victoria calls on Victorian Premier to resign following drag queen event targeted at children. Now, put in the comments, is this the type of statement that you would expect from the opposition? Yes or no? Melbourne, 18th of the 5th, 2023. The Freedom Party of Victoria has called for a thorough investigation and immediate resignation of Victorian Premier Daniel Andrews after hosting a drag queen event targeted at children in Parliament House. Party leader Morgan Jonas condemned the, quote, predatory event, as well as Andrews' spiteful remarks towards concerned Victorians who prioritise the protection of children's innocence. Quote, Andrews' recent characterisation of Victorians who oppose drag queen events targeted as kids as a, quote, hateful minority is unfounded, disrespectful, and a blatant attempt to dismiss legitimate concerns. We are not a hateful minority, but a rational majority that considers the protection of children a normal duty in a civilised society. What took place in Parliament House resembled a cultish ritual, which begs the question, why is Andrew so intent on getting kids in front of drag queens? What is his motivation? What does he get out of it? The Freedom Party of Victoria remains committed to safeguarding the innocence and well-being of children and will fight back against any force that seeks to harm them. So, ladies and gentlemen, if that sounds reasonable to you, if you're sick and tired of the absence of opposition in Victoria, if you're looking for a party that will fight back, that will call it as it is, standing up for our state's most vulnerable, then head on over to freedomparty.net.au, join the fight, and let's take our state back, and let's do everything in our power to protect the innocence of our children. Alrighty, let me just make sure that we are connected. I'm just going to have a little bit of a look here to make sure that the connection is live. I see Rumble ticking along. Hello to everybody on Rumble. Go ahead and share out the broadcast if you have not done so already. I see that Facebook is live, so a big hello to everybody on Facebook and also on YouTube. Go ahead and share the broadcast. Make sure that you like and subscribe to my page, and that way you'll be informed when I go live. So click the bell notification. But the best thing that you can do to stay in the loop so that you are always made aware of when MCJ Report is on is go to mcjreport.com and sign up to the newsletter. So I'm putting the link to the newsletter sign up in the chat right now. And let's see, it should just be, I think that the chat feature is a little bit broken. Let me just see if I can open that up. Bear with me, ladies and gentlemen. This is a one-man operation over here at this stage. We do have back-end support, but when I run the show, it is just me. So Bear with me for a moment, will you, ladies and gentlemen? No, it looks like it's not working. So I'm going to do it manually. Just give me a second. I'm going to give you the link. So if there's one thing that you do today, sign up to the emails because, well, I was going to say that the emails can't be censored, but they actually can. A lot of you have been contacting me to let me know that you've been unable to receive the emails because some of them have been going into the spam folder. So, you know, these are just the sort of problems that we have to deal with on MCJ Report. And when you hold political views that are a little bit different from some of them, say Daniel Andrews, you have you constantly have these types of things that you need to battle. So, all right, I've put them all in the chat right now. So go ahead and sign up, and I'll get back to the show. Let's see. Where were we? No, we're not there. All right. Nuclear energy brings Finland's power prices down by 75%. All right, who here read about this? So, what you may or may not know is that here in Australia, we are home to the largest uranium reserves in the world. That's right. We mine our uranium, we send our uranium overseas. We have nuclear submarines on the way. We store the nuclear waste of other countries here in Australia, such as France. So we have the capability to store the waste securely, efficiently, and safely, even to the extent of making a profit. That's why we offer that service. Yet we do not utilize this carbon neutral source of energy for ourselves. Why do you think that is? I think it's an abomination. You know my stance, ladies and gentlemen. I don't just want Australia to be great. I want Australia to be extraordinary in terms of our industry, our production, our exports, and our military fighting capability. Now, the only way we get there is with cheap, plentiful, and reliable energy. That's right. Now, we are blessed by God to have this incredible abundance of natural resources in our country. The only thing we're missing is a government that has insight and a government that has a plan, or dare I say a long-term plan, which is something we definitely don't have here in Australia. So this is just something that I like to bring up here and there to keep you motivated. Just know that we have an incredible country with an abundance of natural resources, and with a positive change of government, we could very well, most definitely within our lifetime, access these resources and take Australia to a whole new level. I dream of a country whereby we don't need to depend on anyone for our defense if push comes to shove. Of course, we value our military alliances with a range of various countries, but how great would you feel if Australia had the capability to completely stand on its own two legs to fend off any threat, foreign or domestic? I don't know about you, but it'd make me feel pretty happy and very proud. And we have the capability to do it. And this should be something that we never, ever lose sight of. Alrighty, Telegram. Just going to pop this in here. So, Telegram is a great method of communication. I like to use it. Go ahead and follow me on Telegram. My handle is Morgan C. Jonas, and I love to use Telegram for, I guess, articulating certain opinions that maybe I can't put on Facebook for reasons of which I'm sure you understand at home. It's a great little action-taking application. So go ahead and follow me on Telegram. My handle is Morgan C. Jonas, and I'll go and pop that. If someone could put that in the Facebook chat for me because I can't access it, that'd be great. So t.me/Morgan C. Jonas. All right, where am I? All right. Protest penalties, including jail time and $50,000 fines, prompt backlash from human rights groups. I'm going to play this video and I'm going to comment on it as it goes along.
The actions of Extinction Rebellion protesters have been felt across the city this week. 3 more protests.
If only these protesters were so passionate about standing up for our human rights during COVID-19, wouldn't you say, ladies and gentlemen?
Protesters fronted court today, pleading guilty to damaging property after this incident outside the offices of resources company Santos.
I've got no regrets about what I did. We're in a climate and ecological emergency.
But rather than a $750 fine for similar acts of civil disobedience, in the future the maximum penalty would rise to $50,000 or 3 months jail under amendments currently before Parliament.
That's excessive.
Yeah, these activists, they're definitely a different breed. And I have to say, I found it very frustrating driving around Melbourne, trying to get to work, trying to get to a job, only for the roads to be blocked off by people who, most of them have probably never had jobs in their life. It is pretty annoying. And put in the comments if you've experienced that before as well.
It's massively disproportionate, and it really threatens the basic rights of South Australians to people.
Did she speak up when South Australians' rights were threatened over the past 3 years? Or was she at home wearing a mask, hiding in the corner?
Peaceful protest.
Well, I think those concerns are completely unfounded. This was a long overdue update to these laws.
The new penalties passed Parliament's lower house with bipartisan support in less than an hour yesterday as protesters gathered outside. The changes and their quick passage drawing backlash from conservation groups.
These laws are intended to have a chilling effect on community protest action.
Lawyers.
It's crazy how these people, these human rights lawyers making these statements, chilling effect on society, etc. Yet during COVID-19, the most tyrannical period in Australian history, they were silent. In fact, a lot of these people, they were actually cheering on the government. Yeah, go and smash those protesters standing up for freedom. It's just crazy to look at this stuff, isn't it?
There's
been a rush of this legislation without input from the Law Society, from people that are dealing with protest laws and protest groups.
And the union movement.
The entire purpose of these law changes is to put downward pressure on people exercising their rights to demonstrate.
Where were the unions during COVID-19? Remember John Setka here in Melbourne feeding his members to the wolves? Are you a CFMEU member? Do you think that's okay? Are you over that? Did you give him a free pass? I mean, you know, some of these unions have the capability to shut down the city, especially construction here in Melbourne. And of course, during COVID-19, they all just got on board, shut their mouths, went along with the narrative, didn't want to rock the boat. So it's pretty interesting to see how these union officials will be very selective in terms of the causes that they seek to get behind. And of course, there's a reason for that.
Demonstrate and to protest, and we have no idea where that might go in the future.
The Treasurer says the reforms won't affect approved protests.
The purpose of the change to the legislation was to make it absolutely clear to people who are considering protesting here in South Australia to do it in accordance with the law and in consultation with the authorities.
Consultation is exactly what some people are calling for, with the bill yet to go before the upper house.
Yeah, you get the gist of it. So what do you think, ladies and gentlemen? I mean, I think there's a lot of hypocrisy. I mean, at the same time, these Extinction Rebellion protesters, I don't see them doing anything productive. I don't see them planting trees or picking up rubbish. I just see them seeking to destroy other people's lives and really pushing to dictate how other people live. So they don't have a great deal of my sympathy or support. But of course, when we see new measures implemented to crush protest, I feel a little bit concerned because we know that in the future there could be a legitimate need to protest, in which case, well, does the government really need new laws, or can they just arbitrarily announce a state of emergency and send out the riot squad and counter-terrorism? So, yeah, probably a bit of a nothing story. Let's just keep moving along. All right, Drag Queen Betty Confetti Storytime event cancelled at Goulburn Library after threats to council staff. Yeah, so I would say that Victorians and Australians have spoken, and overwhelmingly, people do not want children attending these drag queen story times for kids. As I mentioned before, it's a very normal duty in a civilized society to protect the innocence of children. It doesn't make us extremists, and protecting children's innocence has nothing to do with drag queens. You know, if these shows were simply adults for adults, I wouldn't be talking about this right now. You wouldn't be talking about it. Nobody would be talking about it. The fact that they bring children into this equation, That's why we're speaking up, and that's why we are speaking out and taking any means necessary to stifle the progression of this very predatory trend. You know, Daniel Andrews likes to twist words and to say, well, these people are just hateful, and, you know, that's why they're opposing drag queen story time for kids. Now, the question needs to be, why is it that people like Dan Andrews are so utterly obsessed with getting children in front of drag queens? I mean, you saw the look on Dan Andrews' face before, didn't you, ladies and gentlemen? I mean, there is something seriously strange going on here. There is something more than what meets the eye, I would say, ladies and gentlemen. Why? I mean, just look at the look on his face. Have you ever seen Dan Andrews with such a sparkle in his eye? Have you ever seen him so excited and engaged and filled with life? There's a lot of questions that need to be answered, and I do believe that in the fullness of time, the truth will come out. All right, so we see in the US, there's a lot of states such as Iowa, Tennessee, etc. They're actually banning these drag queen events in front of children, and it's a big trend with the Republican states. We see lawmakers, Republican that is, all across the states, just one after another, really seeking to put an end to these drag queen shows. I don't think you can expect to see legislation like this in Australia or anytime soon. Of course, the entire country is Labor, and even the Liberal opposition, especially here in Victoria, mostly, with few exceptions, there's a few really, really good people in the Victorian Liberal Party. You know who they are. But unfortunately, we don't really have any real opposition, and we just need a big opposition uprising, don't we? All right, moving along to China here. China's Xi Jinping reveals grand development plan for Central Asia summit. You know, this is all pretty normal stuff. China looking to take on the United States. You see, China considers that this century belongs to China. China concedes that last century belonged to the United States and the century before to the British Empire. And now it's China's time. So President Xi Jinping, yes, of course, we know there's human rights abuses in China. We know that there's lots of terrible things that happen, but the man's on a mission. The man has a vision, a big vision, and he is seeking to greater world dominance by any means necessary. So it says here that he's unveiled an ambitious plan to help elevate Central Asia to the next level of its development, from building infrastructure networks to boosting trade while shunning external interference. All right, or in other words, anyone who criticizes his regime. Goes on to say China stands ready to synergize development strategies with the 5 Central Asian nations of Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, and Uzbekistan. Did I say those correctly, ladies and gentlemen? If so, give us a thumbs up. All right, so these are just typical the types of summits headed up by China. China now getting involved in a greater degree of international diplomacy, including but not limited to peace talks, peace treaties, multilateral trade agreements, seeking to implement Chinese commercial lines of credit across various countries around the world, I'd say for the objective of increasing their influence and seeking to rival the global dominance of the United States. And I would say that China and the United States are the two big powers in the world. We see some sort of loose, non-official alliance, of course, forming between China and Russia. I do consider that is more out of a necessity and a mutual enemy rather than mutually shared interests. So put your thoughts in the comments. Where do you think it's all heading? Of course, Dan Andrews learning a lot from the Chinese Communist Party about the methods of control, the communist-style methods of control. Daniel Andrews very much seeking to take after the Chinese Communist Party, and that's very apparent with the social spending policy of the Victorian Labor government, including but not limited to housing, injecting rooms. You know, Dan Andrews will be very happy for Victoria to be the most taxed state in the country. He'll be very happy for Victoria to have the most unaffordable real estate in the country, so that when the budget comes around, he can stand in front of the cameras and announce massive increases to, say, public housing. So the government will create the problem and then masquerade themselves as the solution to the problem. Typical communist method of control. I'm going to steal your loaf of bread, and next week I'm going to give you a slice of bread, and you will be loyal to me because I kept you alive with a slice of bread. Right? And this is how communism simply works. Steal everything from the people, give back a few dribs and drabs, and create the illusion of providing the sustenance of life to the general population. All right, my camera seems to be shifting. I'm going to put you on. I'm just going to go to the intro screen for 30 seconds. I'll be back. All right, I think that's a little bit better. Thanks for your patience there. I've got the camera in a different position today, so I do appreciate you bearing with me for this new format. And put in the comments, what do you think of the new format? Do you like it? This is not an official MCJ report, rather more of a casual broadcast without the green screen, and obviously my attire is a little bit different. So go ahead and put that in the comments, what you think about it. Here's something interesting right here. The G7 summit in Japan has just wrapped up. This is coming from Japan today. It goes on to say here, and this was coming from Hiroshima. The Group of Seven summit in Hiroshima, and by the way, G7 is a meeting of 7 of the most economically powerful countries in the world. The Group of Seven summit in Hiroshima wrapped up on Sunday after discussions on Russia's war in Ukraine and other issues, with President Volodymyr Zelensky participating following his highly publicized arrival in Japan. The G7 nations showed their unwavering unity on supporting Ukraine at the summit, Kishida said, who's the president of Japan, adding that the leaders agreed to bolster economic sanctions on Russia to undermine the country's capacity to continue its aggression. All right, but not all Japanese citizens necessarily see it that way. There was actually protests all across the country breaking out in opposition to the G7 meeting that was characterized by certain members of the public as a form of, quote, imperialism. I have a little clip here of the protest. It goes for about a minute. I'm going to show it to you. All right, so there you go, ladies and gentlemen. What do you make of that? Put your thoughts in the comments. I always find it interesting to see the reasons behind people from other countries protest, and of course the Japanese people doing so in a very respectful manner, raising their concerns. So do you agree with the protesters, or do you agree with the narrative of the G7 summit? Go ahead and put your thoughts in the comments. Alrighty, so what do we have here? Who here has seen this guy? Vivek Ramaswamy vows to release Jeffrey Epstein's client list if elected president. So you've got this young bloke over in the US, presidential candidate, who has declared that he will release Jeffrey Epstein's client list. I mean, does he have the capability to do that? That's the first question I ask. Excuse me for a second. Or is it an empty presidential campaign promise? Goes on to say here, Vivek said this, Jeffrey Epstein did not act alone. Where's the client list? He wrote this on Friday on Twitter in response to a news article about Deutsche Bank agreeing to pay $75 million to settle a lawsuit filed by the alleged sexual abuse victims of Epstein. Release it now. I'll do it as president. Few problems here with this statement, if you ask me, ladies and gentlemen. He's saying, first he's asking, where is the client list? And he's claiming that he will release it if he's president. So, but he doesn't know where the client list is. So, will being president somehow enable him to find the client list? There's just a little bit of an inconsistency there in the words, and it doesn't give me a whole heap of confidence. Maybe you know something I don't know at home. Why don't you go ahead and put that in the comments? All right, moving along here. Billionaire Gina Rinehart lashes out at Labor's budget and calls for more mines, in addition to criticising the proposed increases to immigration. So there's been a few business people in Australia criticising the government's plan to drastically increase our immigration numbers. I'm going to read to you here. The minerals magnate also took aim at Labor's immigration policy, saying that the increase in people, 1.5 million people more, would lead to increased demand on housing and other costs. She said here, quote, "We all know there's a housing shortage for Australians already." Yeah, and anyone in Victoria who's in the who either owns a property or is renting is feeling it, right? Whether it's interest rate rises or the cost of rentals is through the roof and becoming more and more unaffordable. The middle class is utterly under attack, and that is one of the objectives of communism, by the way. And Gina Rinehart is opposing immigration for that reason. So she's saying here, not opposing immigration, sorry, imposing increases to immigration. I correct myself. She said here, quote, "We all know there's a housing shortage for Australians already. Rent is escalating. Hospitals are inadequate without adding more. Police already can't police crime, and crime is escalating. Electricity requirements will increase, adding to unreliability and increased costs." Well, she's right. She is absolutely right. Increased welfare payments and net zero schemes were draining the country's coffers, she added. The answer is more mining and to put more money into the economy. Well, she's absolutely right about everything that she has said. If you look at the rental market, say in metropolitan Melbourne, if you're looking to rent a house right now, you're literally competing with up to a couple of dozen other candidates. It's virtually impossible for some people to get into the rental market, and that will only become more difficult with large increases to immigration, coupled with the cost of living and the stagnation in wages. I do see this spelling disaster for people who are already struggling with the general cost of living, inflation, and interest rates. What do you think? Put that in the comments. Also, we have here, national disgrace, freelancer CEO Matt Barry slams immigration Ponzi as housing crisis deepens. And, of course, Australia's own Dick Smith has referred to the 2 million migrant surge as, quote, crazy. All right, so put that in the comments. What do you think at home? Are you comfortable for massive increases to Australian immigration? I don't think the average person is. There have been some polls conducted as of recently, and my understanding is that over 50% of people do not actually want an increase of immigration at this stage and would prefer for there to be a decrease in the rates of immigration. So maybe you've got an opinion on this. Go ahead and put it in the comments. I feel very concerned about upping our numbers right now, given the strain of the cost of living that so many of us are experiencing right now. And you need to understand that economics of all sorts, it works on the simple principle of supply and demand. why have rentals increased so much here in Victoria? Supply and demand. The demand has increased. The supply has either remained consistent or it has decreased. What I'd love to see are massive tax breaks, to the, say, the domestic building industry. Okay, the regulation costs, tax costs, permit costs, associated costs for building homes is extraordinarily high, and in order to free up housing and to create further rental opportunities, those costs must come down. And Victoria has the most associated property taxes out of any other state in the country. So really, no matter what way you look at it, it's the government with its boot placed firmly on the necks of the Victorian working class. And the only solution to get out of this problem is major tax reform, housing policy reform, and the last thing we should be doing is increasing the demand in a market whereby the supply is very limited and is very, very compromised. And this is just like, this is like primary school level economics. It's not complicated, and it's concerning to think where this is all going. Alrighty, what else do we have? Alright, look at this. The radical proposal to recruit foreigners to fight for Australia. We've seen police forces across the country singing this tune, haven't we, ladies and gentlemen? Police forces really struggling to boost their numbers, apparently. And I've been very skeptical of these reports because the truth is, with the right type of marketing campaign, the right strategy, intelligent messaging, I think it's possible to fill jobs in this country. And I don't see police departments nor the ADF trying as hard as they could to recruit their numbers domestically. And I don't know exactly why that is. Maybe they're lacking people who have professional marketing capabilities within their departments. Maybe they're lacking people with HR and recruitment capabilities. Maybe they don't know how to recruit. Or maybe it's something else. What do you think at home? I personally do not feel comfortable with the idea of recruiting foreigners into our ADF. I think members of our ADF should be Australian citizens, and that's only fair and reasonable. We need ADF members pledging their loyalty to Australia and the Australian people, and to not have conflicting loyalties. Is that fair enough? I'm going to read it to you. The federal opposition and leading military experts are calling on the Albanese government to consider radical policy changes, including allowing foreigners to fight under the Australian flag to help address the recruitment crisis plaguing the nation's defence. I mean, they say that recruits should be from friendly countries only, such as New Zealand, Japan, United States, and United Kingdom. But you know what? Sometimes in the fullness of time, when it comes to geopolitical relations, it's not that unusual for your friends to become your enemies. And I personally wouldn't feel comfortable with that. The Australian Defence Force is not the French Foreign Legion, which is, of course, basically a mercenary military that is open to people from all over the world. If the Australian government is interested in creating sort of the public equivalent of a private military contracting organisation, then I'd be pretty interested in that. But not to have that organisation under the same banner as the ADF. Create a separate organisation, like maybe the Australian Foreign Legion. Bring in people from around the world and use that fighting force to be contracted out wherever they're needed as a means of bringing export dollars into Australia. All right, so I'm not saying that's a perfect plan. I'm not even saying I'd support a plan like that. What I am saying is that something like that makes more sense to me, because at least you can, at least there's a pathway forward for providing a profitable scenario for Australia, and considering the troops would be mercenaries, it wouldn't really matter whether or not their allegiance was with Australia or another country. So if that makes sense to you, then go ahead and put your thoughts in the comments. Maybe you don't like that idea. I don't even know if I like that idea. I'm just kind of throwing it out there in a very ad-lib sense. So go ahead and let me know what you think. All right, we're just about at the end of the show. So I'm going to give the store a bit of a plug here. So this is shop.mcjreport.com. The link is in the description of this video. You can head on over there and enter the code FREEDOM10, lowercase freedom 10 at checkout, and you will get 10% off MCJ Report merchandise, including the t-shirt that I'm wearing tonight. That's right. So this is a little bit of a shameless plug, a bit of shameless self-promotion. But if you support MCJ Report, if you support me, you like what I do with the show, with Freedom Party of Victoria, and we are growing all over the state. So believe me, I'm not sleeping at the wheel. I'm working at this every day of my life, in addition to working in other areas, right? So head on over to shop.mcjreport.com. You can get some bumper stickers. We've got all the classic, the media is lying to you, question everything, resist tyranny, all your favorite flags. My friend was saying that he's not a fan of the blue ensign. Me, personally, I like our blue flag, but you know what? We've got the red ensign there as well. You got the Eureka t-shirt, $29.95. You got the MCJ travel mug buddy, $29.95, but cheaper because of the 10% discount. T-shirts, stuff like that. So support the show. Back what I do, because I'm in here for the long run. Victoria, love Victoria. Just want to defend Victoria. This is our home. So shop.mcjreport.com. Go ahead and check it out today, and go and grab some merch and look awesome while you do it. And that way, guess what? Everybody wins. Everybody. Alrighty, so where are we? Okay, we are at the end of the show, so I'll open up Rumble. Got the Rumble comments here on the screen. There's Jet. There's AW4A saying that I'm talking logical sense. Thank you very much, and I appreciate you saying that. I do seek to be logical here on MCJ Report. There's Van Presser saying we need patriotic people who understand Australian values to work in these areas. That's right, I think we do. Who's really running the show in Australia? Well, nobody good, unfortunately. There's Sharon there. It's great to see you. If anyone has any questions, then feel free to ask me now, or forever hold your peace. I'm going to try and log into the other chat so I can retrieve the comments from Facebook and YouTube. Hasn't exactly been working for me tonight, so if you just bear with me, I'm going to log in, and yeah, if you got some questions, go and put it in the chat. Nothing is off limits, so you're more than welcome to ask whatever you want. Don't be shy, don't hold back. So let me know where you're all tuned in from. Do we have anyone watching internationally tonight? I do very much like to hear from our international guests. If you're wondering why I'm on my phone, it's because I'm controlling the login to the chat feature via my phone. So please don't think that I'm being rude, because this is all for the greater sake of accessing messages that are getting sent in by you, the amazing MCJ Report viewers. All right, let's see. Rumble. Yeah, no, it looks like it's not going to happen. So I'll probably have to do this manually. I'll go to Facebook. See if there's anyone saying anything. One second. Okay, I see there's messages coming now. Luna Bell says support the show. Yeah, support the show. I'll post the link there in Rumble. I think that it needs to have the HTTP for it to work. Let me do that. Yeah, there we go. There's purple there. Yeah, roughly 25. Maybe a little bit more for the show. But so MCJ Report 200 will feature a live audience, and it's not going to be like, the ticket prices aren't going to be excessive, but obviously there's cost involved, right? Hiring a venue. Some people think that everything just happens for free. Cameras are free. Venues are free. Merchandise is free. Microphones are free. Lighting is free. Nothing is free. Nothing is free. So it's going to be a great night, and hopefully I'll see as many of you there as possible. Alrighty, so let me just go to Facebook and see if I can access some messages. Sammy Clark says, Morgan never stops. That's right. Stop when I'm dead. So Daniel Andrews, you want to stop me? You got to come and kill me. How about that? Brenda is tuned in from the UK. Brenda, how you going? Great to have you on board. We love our friends from the UK. It is so great to have you here. Jessica says that you can't wait for the live show. Thank you very much. That is kind of you to say that. It's always a pleasure to have you on the show, Jessica. Just trying to access all these messages Jessica from Facebook. If you'd like to ask... Oh, Finland. AJ from Finland. How you going? What a beautiful country. I've never been to Finland. I would love to go. It looks beautiful. And is that an invitation? Do we all get to come and visit you in Finland? Do they have a vaccine requirement for entry? Let me know. Let's see. Just having a read here. Go ahead and follow me on Telegram, by the way, guys. That is the ideal mode of contact. I want to put a little action group together. Let me know if you'd participate in something like that. Sometimes certain councils need to be emailed and certain people need to be called. So I will be creating an action group whereby you can stay in the loop in order to take action on the issues that are important. So go ahead and follow me on Telegram for that. Let's see. I'm just reading up here. There's always a lot of trolls trying to promote bogus Telegram groups in my chat. It's pretty annoying. Just going to ban a few people right now. Well, speak now, forever hold your peace. And if there's no questions, then I'm going to get going. Someone said to me that at certain inspections, there are up to 50 people competing for the same rental. Yeah. So increasing immigration makes absolutely no sense at this stage. The rental market is utterly decimated. Utterly decimated. AW4A says you're here to take action. All right. Follow me on Telegram, and I'm going to create the action group. Sign up at mcjreport.com to receive the newsletter. Because the great thing about the action group, right, is you don't need to be in Melbourne. You don't need to be in Victoria. You don't even need to be in Australia. You can be anywhere on planet Earth and you can take action. If you would like to participate, then go ahead and get involved. All right, so I'm just putting the sign up link to the newsletter as well. All right, guys, so I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in. I hope that everybody enjoyed the show. I feel very blessed and fortunate that so many of you tuned in tonight across all the platforms, Rumble, YouTube, and Facebook. Please, no matter where you go or what you do, have a safe week, have a good week, keep fighting, and do not let the system get you down. Alrighty, so lots of love, have good dreams, and I'll catch you on the next episode of MCJ Report.